Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm doing my weekly reading wrap-up from June 10th to the 16th. I read a total of 9 books this week, as well as I DNF'd 1 book. I will link all these books down below and let's get right into it. So I am participating in the Buzzword Readathon, which is halfway in this week and halfway in next week. And so you will hear about some of the books I was reading for that readathon, and then you'll hear about the remainder of them in next week's wrap-up. But if you are interested, I am posting a vlog this week for the readathon once it is over, and I will be exclusively talking about those books that I read in that readathon. So feel free to check that out if you are only interested in the Buzzword Readathon books. The first one that I read is Forget Me Not by Claire Allen, and I got this as an ARC, but it did come out on May 30th, so it is already published if you are interested in checking it out. And this one is a thriller, and I really liked this one. I've never read anything by this author, but I do have a couple of her other novels on my Kindle. So this is about a woman named Claire Taylor who is found brutally murdered on the side of the road, and she is found by a woman named Elizabeth, and she is an older lady. She is walking her dog and she discovers this murdered woman named Claire. And this is really hard for Elizabeth, seeing this woman. She would have been the same age as her daughter, and her daughter tragically died 2 years previously. And so it's really hard for her seeing someone murdered on the side of the road and thinking about her daughter. So we're seeing through Elizabeth's perspective as well as Rachel's perspective. And Rachel is one of Claire's very best friends, and when she learns of her friend's murder, it is really heartbreaking for her. But she's dealing with a lot of drama in her personal life. She's keeping some secrets from her husband, and he is keeping some secrets from her. And it is just really overwhelming when her friend passes away. So we're seeing through the two perspectives of these two ladies. And both these women, as well as people close to the victim, like her family, other friends, start receiving these bouquets of forget-me-not flowers. And they have some cryptic messages on them that seem pretty threatening, almost like they are from the murderer. And so you're following along these two ladies and trying to put the pieces together of this murder. And are these women safe? Is someone out to get them? Are they next? Are their families in danger? And this one I loved. I couldn't really guess what was going on, and it had one of those double reveals at the end where you think you know what's happening and then you get another reveal and you are proved wrong. And I really loved this. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, and I would highly recommend it. The next book that I read is also an ARC, and it is called The Friendship Pact by Allison James. And this one comes out on July 3rd. This is about a woman named Lucy who is married to a man, and he is not so nice. Everyone thinks their marriage is perfect, but he is a little bit abusive verbally and physically, and she really wants to escape her marriage, but every time she tries to leave him, he finds her and brings her back home and kind of manipulates her, and she's pretty stuck in her life. And she goes back home to visit her dad because of his health, and she runs into a childhood friend of hers named Adele, and Adele and her were best friends for about a year when they were teenagers. And they haven't seen each other in a long time, and where Lucy, she's kind of worked her way up in life and is more high class. Adele has had some trouble with the law and's been to jail, and she's kind of just not in the same realm as Lucy. Lucy gets the bright idea that she should ask Adele to help her escape her marriage, because if anyone knows how to do things illegally, it would be Adele. And so she kind of gets herself in this situation, and it turns sour, and she starts to regret what she's doing, and just these crazy things are happening to Lucy, and she regrets asking for Adele's help. And this jumps timeline, so it's currently with Lucy, as well as showing the friendship between Lucy and Adele back when they were kids. And you're kind of just seeing those two timelines and kind of wondering what's going to happen to Lucy, what's going to happen to Adele. And this one I didn't love. I kind of saw where the story was going after about halfway through, and so it kind of ruined it a little bit for me, but I did enjoy it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read I actually DNF'd, and that is The Road Leads Back by Marcy Bolden, and this one I DNF'd at 34%. The premise of the story I found really intriguing, but the execution just didn't work for me. So I can't speak for the whole novel. I only got 1/3 of the way through. This is about a woman who slept with one of her friends in high school, and then he left the next day and didn't say goodbye to her. She became pregnant, and now it's been almost 30 years, and her son is an adult. He has his own child, and she's doing some kind of art exhibit, and her flame from high school returns, and she tells him that he has a son, and it's about him rebuilding the relationship with her as well as his new son. and I just didn't like this at all. I just found it a little cringeworthy and cheesy, and I feel like everything was kind of resolved just too easily, and I think some of the drama could have been drawn out a little bit more, but that's just me personally. And if I had to rate the 34% that I read, I would give it 2 stars. But again, I didn't finish it, so I can't speak to the whole novel. And then I was trying to catch up on arcs, so the next one is an arc as well, and it is Deceive Me by Karen Cole. I read another Karen Cole earlier this year called Deliver Me, and I really enjoyed it, so I was really excited to read Deceive Me. So this is about a mother named Jo, and one morning she takes both her kids to school, and after school only one of them comes home, and her teenage daughter named Grace, she does not return home from school, and she reports her daughter missing, and she's trying to figure out where is her daughter. So her and her husband are talking to her friends and her boyfriend Tim, and they are suspecting that it could be her boyfriend that has something to do with her disappearance because he is older than her. He's like almost 20 years old, and their relationship isn't approved by the parents. Or it could be her friends. She has a shady friend, and they're kind of wondering what happened to the daughter. Did something happen to her, or did she leave voluntarily? And while she's investigating her daughter's disappearance, she's starting to think about the past that she has when she was a teenager and she was an au pair for a family in Cyprus. And you're both learning about Jo's past as well as the current investigation and how do these two storylines intersect. And I found this to be really enjoyable, and I didn't see all of the twists coming, and I do like that about Karen Cole's writing. I think she does write really good twisty thrillers, and I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars. And this one is going to be published on July 1st. So now let's get on to the books I've been reading for the Buzzword Readathon. The first one is Lies You Never Told Me by Jennifer Donaldson. And this one I checked out physically from the library, but I've since returned it, so I no longer have the copy. But this one is a YA mystery thriller, and it's about 4 different teens, and 3 of them are in Texas, and 1 of them is in Portland, Oregon. So the one in Portland, Oregon is Elise, and she's 15 years old, and she just got the lead role in Romeo and Juliet at her school, and she has a crush on her theater teacher. And so you're kind of following her, getting herself in a little bit of trouble. And then you follow 3 other teens in Texas. There is Gabe and Sasha. They've been dating in high school, but Gabe does not want to date Sasha anymore, so he breaks up with her. But Sasha will not accept that they're broken up, and she's doing some pretty extreme things to try and get Gabe back. But meanwhile, Gabe has his sights set on a girl named Catherine. She is new to school. She's pretty shy, and she just wants a fresh start, but it's clear that she has some interesting things going on back home. And her and Gabe have a little bit of a romance, but Sasha does not want to let Gabe go, and she certainly does not want him to be with Catherine, and so there's this kind of love triangle thing going on, and you're wondering how the 2 storylines intersect because there's Elise in Portland, and then there's Gabe, Sasha, and Catherine in Texas. And you kind of follow along their individual dramas just to see how they intersect. And I guessed the twist before the halfway mark, and it kind of ruined the story a little bit for me. And a lot of people said they didn't guess it, but I unfortunately did. But I do have to keep in mind that the intended audience of this is teenagers, and so with that in mind, I did enjoy it, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next one I read is I Found You by Lisa Jewell, and I really enjoyed this one. I've read 2 other Lisa Jewells, and this is my 3rd, and I really liked it. This follows 3 different storylines. The first is Alice. She lives on a coastal town, and she is a single mom to 3 kids. And she sees a stranger on the beach. It is an older man, and he has no idea who he is or where he came from. And she is kind of keen to strays, so she takes him in and lets him stay in her pool house, even though her friends are like, you should not take in this strange man. But she does anyway, and she befriends him, and she nicknames him Frank, even though he doesn't have a name, he doesn't know what his name is. And she's trying to help him put the pieces together of his life. And then we're following a woman named Lily. She recently moved to the UK from Ukraine. She got married to an older man, and his name is Carl. And one day, like only 2 weeks after they get married, he doesn't come home from work, so Lily reports him missing. And when the police investigate and look up his passport, they realize it is a fake. So Lily's trying to uncover who her husband really is, who she's married to, and where is he. And then the 3rd storyline takes place over 2 decades earlier in 1993. We are following these 2 siblings named Kirsty and Gray, and they are vacationing with their parents on a coastal town, and they're spending the summer there. and they meet this guy named Mark who is a little bit older than them, and Mark has a big crush on Kirsty, and he's a little bit aggressive in how much he likes Kirsty, and she really likes him, but Gray gets a really bad vibe off of Mark. And so you're following these three storylines and you're wondering who the unnamed man is in the first storyline, and maybe who is Carl. Is he that missing guy? You don't know. And this one I really liked because there were so many options and so many people that nameless guy could be, and I found this one so good. It was a little bit of a slower mystery, so if you don't like slow burn mysteries, you probably won't like this, but if you like Lisa Jewell's other books, I think you will love this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read is How I Lost You by Jenny Blackhurst, and I absolutely love this cover. I picked this one up, I just saw it on my shelves that it had you in the title, and it is a thriller mystery type of novel. And it is about a woman named Susan who almost 4 years ago she murdered her 3-month-old baby son, and she gets sent to a psychiatric hospital to deal with that because clearly she was not in a sound mind, and they thought it was due to postpartum psychosis. And now she is released on compassionate release, and she has changed her name to start fresh. But when she moves to her new town with her new name, she receives an envelope at her home with her old name on it and a picture of a child inside with the name of her son, Dylan. And so she starts to question, is her son alive? And has the last 3 years all been a hoax? What happened? And so she goes on this wild goose chase to discover if her son is still alive, and she feels like her life is in danger as well. And this one I found to be extremely slow. You're following the storyline of Susan, but you're also following a second storyline that is from the past, back from the 1990s, and it's a group of boys that are together in college, and they have a very interesting friendship and get themselves into trouble, and there are some twists going on, and clearly the two storylines intersect, but I didn't really care about that storyline, and so the twists weren't shocking, and I didn't really like Susan's character or her storyline much either. So wasn't a really huge fan of this novel, so I probably will unhaul it, but I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. The next book that I read is I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella, and this one I have had on my shelves for years, and I tried reading it years ago when I first purchased it, and I only got about 20 pages in, and for some reason I didn't finish it. There's no real reason why, but I picked it back up and read it for this readathon. And this is about a woman named Poppy who is recently engaged, and her fiance gave her a family heirloom emerald ring, and it's very beautiful and really special to her. But she's at some luncheon at a hotel with her friends, and she's passing it around for her friends to try on, and the fire alarm goes off and she loses the ring. And while she loses the ring and she's searching for it, a person steals her cell phone. So she's really out of luck and she's like desperate. But lucky for her, she sees in the garbage there's a cell phone, and she picks it up and gives the number to everyone at the hotel saying, hey, I have a new number. If you find my ring, call me. But then she soon discovers who this phone belongs to. It turns out it belonged to the personal assistant of this businessman named Sam, and clearly the personal assistant threw it away and quit. And so Sam is pretty pissed and out of luck. Poppy refuses to give the phone back to Sam, but she says she will do his personal assistant job basically if he lets her use this company phone. So they have this relationship over emails and texts, and it's pretty funny, and Poppy gets herself into some serious situations, and they're pretty humorous. And you see both of them change. So Sam is pretty cold and not the friendliest of bosses, but Poppy helps him to be more friendly. And Poppy is a little bit of a pushover, and she lets people walk all over her, and Sam teaches her to have more of a backbone and stand up for herself. And the romance didn't really kick in till later in the book, and I would have rated this a little bit lower, but I really did like the ending, and I just thought it was so sweet, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book that I read is I'm Watching You by Teresa Driscoll. I actually read this as a buddy read with my really good friend Beth. She has a YouTube channel called Beth and the Books. I will link her down below. You guys should go check her out. You would really love her channel. She loves thrillers. So if you like thrillers, go check her out. So we read this one together, and we split it up over a couple of days, and we were talking about it. And we both kind of have similar opinions on it. It is a mystery thriller type of book, and it's about a girl named Anna that disappeared 1 year ago. She went on the train with her friend to London and never returned home. And now it is a year later, and we are following the perspective of 4 different people. So we are following the perspective of Ella. She was also on the train in London, and she's called the Witness. and she didn't report what she saw, and she's been feeling a lot of guilt ever since, and she's been receiving some threatening mail basically blaming her for the disappearance of Anna. We're also following Anna's friend Sarah, who was with her in London, and she's dealing with the repercussion of losing her friend, and she's been keeping a secret ever since her disappearance, and she's worried that she is the cause for Anna's disappearance. And then the third person we're following is Anna's father, Henry. He is also keeping some secrets from the night that Anna disappeared, and those kind of unravel and we see what happens. The fourth person is a PI named Matthew, and he is working for Ella to try and track down who is sending her these threatening messages, and in the process he is investigating Anna's disappearance. And about halfway through the story, we also see another unnamed person who is the stalker, and he or she is watching someone. We don't know who they're watching or who they are, but it was pretty cliche and pretty corny. I didn't really like that perspective. And this overall just was so boring for me. I didn't feel connected to any of the storylines, and I wasn't really surprised, and just dragged on. And then we got the reveal and the book was over. So didn't love this one. I'm going to unhaul it. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. The last book that I read this week is Don't You Forget About Me, and I don't know how to say the author's name, so I'm just going to have a picture here. And this one is also an ARC. It doesn't come out till September 10th, but I knew it worked for this readathon, so I picked it up. And this is a chick lit about a girl named Georgina who is kind of a joke to a lot of her friends and family. She has a really bad job as a waitress at this terrible Italian restaurant, and her boyfriend is a comedian, and a lot of people think he's kind of a scumbag. And she's not really taken seriously, even though she's 30 years old. And one night she gets fired from her job, and she walks in on her boyfriend cheating on her, so she's kind of out of luck. But her sister gets her a job at a bar with someone they know, and she's a bartender now at this local pub. And what do you know, the person who owns the bar is this guy that she knew back in high school named Lucas, and they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and he's kind of the one who got away, and it's been 12 years since they've seen each other, and Lucas doesn't remember her at all. And it kind of throws her for a loop, and it is kind of their story as well as Georgina's coming of age story, and it's mostly a coming of age story for her and kind of following her. This is definitely more of a chick lit book rather than a romance novel. I thought it was going to be heavier on the romance based on the cover and the synopsis, but it ended up being more of a chick lit book and more about Georgina's personal growth as a person. It was a pretty humorous book. It had a lot of good comedy, but the writing wasn't my favorite. I found that the dialogue was really casual with things like LOL and ha ha ha, but then the narrative was more formal, and so I just didn't love this one. It was good and enjoyable, but wasn't what I was looking for, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So those are all the books that I read this week, as well as the one book that I did not finish. I will link these all down below, and I'd love to hear if you've read any of these, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye.